Welcome to Southcoast Matters. I'm Steve Kerrigan, sitting in for Paul Letendre.
And I'm Julie Taylor, and my handsome co-host today, Steve, is a former senior aide to the late Ted Kennedy, former candidate for lieutenant governor, and former chair of the Democratic National Convention and presidential inauguration. That's times two, right?
That's right.
And has been a past guest on our program.
The most important part of my career is that. The past guest on this program.
That's right. That's right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Exactly. And our guest today is Peter Letendre, who is the CEO of Clinical Services of Rhode Island, which provides outpatient rehab and addiction treatment services to the people in Rhode Island and the region. After his own beginning of his recovery from drugs and alcohol, Pete worked with at-risk youth in the first of many roles in this prevention programs and in his career in this field. So welcome, Pete.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So he continued on his path. You graduated from Rhode Island College with both your master's degree and mental health counseling. Mm-hmm. Is that like do they have a double thing like Northeastern has the double Husky program?
You can specialize. So I specialize in mental health counseling. So.
Cool. And you also have an advanced graduate degree.
Yes.
So you're a licensed alcohol and drug counselor as well as a licensed mental health counselor.
That's correct.
And today we're going to talk about the drug problem, how it has grown to epidemic proportions in recent years. And again, thanks for being with us here today, Peter. So we're going to get right into it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So here we have a treatment facility for women, especially at the Framingham prison complex. And there's been some talk that that's not necessarily the proper setting for addiction. So how would you look at that, and what do they do in Rhode Island for things like that?
In Rhode Island, we do have some treatment centers located in the prison, but that's for inmates, you know. So anybody who's in prison that has a substance use problem could access care while in prison. Mm-hmm. But you know, our facilities in Rhode Island, the outpatient, the inpatient facilities are all outside of the prison for the most part. There's a great amount of stigma that goes into you know, when somebody has an addiction problem, there's a lot of stigma. You know, it takes a lot of courage for folks to walk in the door and say, I need some help. So, you know, I can't comment on what's happening in Mass with the prison situation, but, you know, the more we can try to reduce the stigma, I think the better the outcome for these folks, you know.
And how do we do that? You know, does it start in, or do you work in schools or with others to sort of help?
This is a great way to reduce stigma right here, right? This conversation we're having, being able to talk about it publicly and being able to just have open discussions about it, because I think everybody that I come into contact with, whether it's work-related or not, they know somebody who has a substance use problem. And there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of embarrassment that comes with this, you know. So I think the more we can talk about it and connect with people and speak about it publicly is great, you know.
Yeah, and I've noticed lately there's been several obituaries, unfortunately, for people who have passed, and family has actually said the story about what had happened to the person in a way to destigmatize and just to tell the story.
I've been seeing that too, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's not fantastic for the families who are going through it, but I think it's healing for them to be able to be honest and be able to be open about it. But it's also can be a powerful story for others to hear. You know what I mean? Because I think there's, especially for young adults, there's really young adults have this thing about them we call the invincibility complex. You know, you remember we're not that old, right? But you know, right? We're 20-something. Come on.
Yeah, at the very least.
Death isn't going to happen to us, but when they see somebody who's young like that has passed from an overdose, I think it brings it home. It makes it real, puts it in front of their face, you know.
And so now this is, and we talked a little bit about this before we started, which we probably shouldn't have done, but this is something that has been really on the rise for 10, 15 years. When it comes to an opiate issue. There's been addiction and recovery issues been going on for a lot longer than that. You know, I want you to talk a little bit about, like, do we see it leveling off at all? I mean, I know the legislature's been worked in Massachusetts and legislatures all across the country, and hopefully in Congress, if they actually ever do something, are trying to address this. But it doesn't seem to be going down. We're already on track to exceed the 2016 numbers here in Massachusetts, which was 1,465 deaths opiate-related in Massachusetts. Do we feel like we're nearing a plateau, or what we're doing helping, or what else could we do?
Well, as you said,
solve all the problems if you could.
Great, no problem.
Your answer, that'd be great.
Magic wand?
Yeah.
I wish we could, right? But you know, over the last 10 or 15 years, I mean, things have been on the rise, as you said. I mean, I can remember back, you know, about 15 years ago, opioids were being brought up from Florida area, prescription opioids, and sold on the streets. That's kind of what introduced Oxycontin, oxycodone, Vicodin, those kinds of things to the street. And people didn't really know too much about what they were doing. And once they were into it, you know, it came up that heroin was quite similar, and I think a lot of people didn't know that again. And now there's been so much word on the street about what heroin is, the effects that heroin can give. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, it doesn't scare them. For some, it makes them more interested, and it's almost decreased the amount of harm in their minds, you know,
really?
Especially amongst young adults.
So somehow heroin makes it better when they talk about
heroin, I mean,
or more intriguing to them?
It's intriguing because, you know, it's on the edge, you know.
Yeah,
it's kind of like how cocaine was
right.
in the 80s, I think, you know. Yeah. It's not maybe as classy in some ways, it's seen that way, I should say, but I think it's glamorous would be the word, I guess. It's not as glamorous, but I think there's a certain subset of kids or young adults or any adults who are looking for something, and heroin is it, you know, and unfortunately.
So what is it going to take to scare them into how horrible this drug is and how the after effects, not just to the person that's consuming it, but the
honestly,
family?
I think it starts with an approach from when they're this big, you know.
Yeah.
I can remember when I was a kid in the 70s and in the early 80s, we had a lot of prevention programs in the schools, and I don't hear as much of that anymore. I don't know why. I'm sure it's a funding issue, but that doesn't mean that that's going to cure it all, but I think it's a multi-pronged approach. You know, you have education in the schools, you have parents, families becoming more aware, more educated, talking to their kids more about these issues. You know, then when you become a teenager, that's when you're more prepared. You know, when you face these difficult situations, like a lot of teens do, and young adults, you know, maybe they have a little bit more knowledge, they have a little bit more experience.
It's an educational opportunity. Any last sort of comments or pitch you want to make about the importance of supporting organizations like yours?
Yeah, I would say, you know, to families, to people who are struggling with this issue, the best thing you can do is look for help. Don't put this issue off. Get the help you need.
So we want to thank Peter Letendre for your valuable time.
My name is Steve Kerrigan. You may find this and other past shows on Vimeo. Search there for Southcoast Matters. You may also search Facebook under Southcoast Matters. And thank you all very much for watching.
And I'm Julie Taylor, and thank you, Steve Kerrigan, for filling in
Thanks,
for
Julie.
Paul. And today's show was filmed on March 13th, 2017 at TCAM TV in Taunton. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you to Kim Murphy, Ben Fortier, and Walter Sabina at TCAM TV in Taunton for the use of their studios and their valuable help, without which this show would not exist.